Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Engine arm off. 413 is in.
We copy you down, Eagle. Okay, everybody, T1. Stand by for T1. Roger.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Oh, that view is tremendous.
Kennedy's pledge will inspire the American people, calm hysteria, and unite an army of engineers to take up his challenge.
The thought occurred to me that, do I really want to be on the first one? And I came to the conclusion that I really didn't, because I could anticipate a little bit at that time all the commitments and responsibilities that would go along with being on that first flight. And I was a little apprehensive about all the public appearances and so forth. At the time, you feel very much, or I did feel very much on stage. 240,000 miles away, it doesn't seem like on stage, but when you know that millions of people are watching on television, listening to your voice, you're, in a word, apprehensive of not doing something wrong or not fulfilling what's expected of you.
How disappointed were you that you were the second man on the moon and not the first?
I liked to be associated with the fact that I was on the first lunar landing mission instead of being the second man to walk on the moon. But it doesn't bother me particularly.
Can you remember if you were disappointed when the decision was taken, a month or so before you actually went to the moon?
Oh, yeah, certainly disappointed. But I think that my life would have been a little more hectic had I been the first.
You'd do it all again?
Yeah, I'm sure there'd be trying moments if I did it again. But having gone through it once, I'd be a much smarter person.
And yet, Buzz, it almost destroyed you.
Right. But I think I'm a better man for having experienced it. July 1969, we landed on the moon. It doesn't seem so long ago now, but the space program is behind me now. A lot has happened since then. My life has certainly changed. When you're used to having most things go right, it's difficult suddenly to face anything going wrong. But that's what happened. My life began to come apart. Depression, something I thought only happened to other people, was happening to me. I had become part of that 1 in 10 Americans who was mentally ill. I thought I'd made some tough decisions in my life, but now I was facing one which was probably my biggest: the decision to seek professional help for an emotional problem. All of my education, my military training, my flight training, all of my training as an astronaut couldn't help me now. I had to reach out to someone else for help. I was afraid of the stigma, what it would do to my career. But I knew I needed help, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. At the Detroit annual meeting, I was asked to serve on the national board. And a year later, greatly honored to be asked to serve as your national mental health chairman. Some of my pride in being a part of the Mental Health Association.
But in 1963, NASA has little idea of how to build a rocket capable of flying beyond Earth orbit.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. But going to Mars should be one of the next series of steps that humans do. The first step should be going back to the moon for a number of technical reasons and exploration reasons, and then after that, Mars, maybe high orbit in Venus atmosphere, maybe going to Europa. There's all kinds of targets to go to, places of interest in our solar system. The only limit to human future is in our own imaginations.
I remember very clearly, I think anybody who was alive at the time does, I remember my parents waking me up and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon.
No,
which
you
was
didn't. No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. See, you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy, man. Listen.
Talking about, you know, how many feet we were going to the left and right, and then I said, contact light, engine stop.
It was
and a few
exciting.
other things, and then Neil said, Houston, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. Hey, you better go out first and, you know, think up a couple of lines to say when you step on the moon.
Right, right. So that's a huge responsibility.
You
now,
bet, right.
You were not the first man to walk on the moon, but you've actually talked about this. You were the first man to relieve himself on the moon. Is that true?
That is correct.
That is correct.
2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Now, the details of that, when you separate the command and service module, the lunar module is enclosed and wouldn't extract freely. It's enclosed in 4 big panels. Right. I forget the dimension, but they're pretty big. Right. And with spring tension, they move out. I don't think they're explosive bolts in 4 different directions. Right. So we watched the upper stage do the evasive maneuver and moved away from us. Then we started looking back at the Earth, holding a little eyeglass and then releasing it so that it's floating, and I could look through the eyeglass and see the Earth as it's gradually drifted away, and then I'd have to reposition it. So anyway, we're getting ready to go to bed, and I'm looking out the window, and I see a light moving at a distance, some distance, against the star background. And of course, the stars are not moving, they're inertial space. Sure. So we decided we would just calmly ask Houston where the upper stage was. So we asked them, where's the S4B? How far away is it? And they didn't know immediately, but they had to check with the back room, who keep track of all these trajectories. And so several minutes later, Houston came back, Apollo 11, the S4B is about 6,000 miles away.
So that couldn't be
I
the
figured
S4B.
that was not what I was looking at.
Right, right.
So I figured, well, it must be something else. How about those 4 panels? Well, there's no transponders to be tracking by the Deep Space Network as we're moving away from the Earth. So they're not going to be able to help us out. So it was kind of curious. And that's why when somebody asked me on Apollo 11, did you see anything unusual? I got to be honest about it and either say, well, it's a detail, but we saw nothing other than something that we were 99.99% was a man-made object that was part of the spacecraft, but we did happen to see it, and according to the technical definition of unidentified flying object, it has to fit in that category, because there was no way for us to tell it was panel 1, 2, 3, or 4 without bringing in the rest of the world and disturbing what the heck we were about, and that's going to the moon.
Do you think there was any, as some of these people allege, any conscious plot by NASA not to divulge this information?
There never has been at any time. They are always open. That's the one thing about our space program. Once we got through flying on the Atlas and the Titan that had military applications, the S4B, I mean the Saturn V was public information. It was a civil, and all the spacecraft and all the transmissions and everything we did, unless it had some reference to the capabilities of tracking networks, and I don't think those were at all classified. This was a totally open program in contrast to the Soviet program.
Well, I think it's important for the United States to be among the first humans to colonize. I'll use the word inhabit. There are three ways you can go to Mars. You can visit, which means you're going to come back right away, or you can occupy, you can go there, and people will be there. You'll come back and other people will, but you'll keep it occupied all the time. And the next one is you go to Mars and you inhabit Mars. Now, you can inhabit Mars right from the get-go or the beginning. That is the more determined way, that is the more economic way, but you have to prepare ahead of doing expensive things like sending people to the moon of Mars. That's expensive, but you need them there to make the finishing touches on what you've done to prepare permanence from Earth. Now you got to be smart to be able to do all of those and do those in an economic fashion, in an inspiring and in an international cooperative way.
And what do you mean?
Is that a suggestion on your part?
It's not a suggestion. I'm asking you whether this is a competition.
I hope not. I hope that that competing at the operations level is wasteful, because that means both sides have to prepare all the way there. Now, they both may have nice designs. Let's pick the best design, and then let's cooperate in carrying out. So that's sort of my guiding light for low Earth orbit and lunar activities and carrying on to Mars.
Habitation on the moon. We can visit other people with their habitation. We can keep track. If there's something very important to be developed from the moon, I'm not sure what it is right now. And I sure think we should identify what it is for America to make such gross expenditures again for human habitation on the moon. We can help. We can join with. Together, we can explore the moon and develop the moon. We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there. If you choose, God put it there. Maybe.
Don't you know that fighter pilots have ice in their veins? We don't feel. We execute. You like that?
I do.
Yeah. Fear is a paralyzing emotion. It just encompasses your ability to think about other things, just to be with it.
Gotcha.
Be here now with it.
So let's take you out of the airplane and put you into the lunar module, right?
Yeah.
You're standing next to Neil.
We get in this way.
That way.
No, that's the engine.
You're given descent calls, right? You're looking out the window, you're conning him down. Any fear in that Apollo 11 landing for you?
I knew he could hear me. I remember in the simulation, the checklist had the communication set at PTT. So we were making a simulation, and I just thought that the guys out there ought to hear what we were saying to each other. So I flipped the switch to Vox. Man, they were impressed. They said, that's wonderful. We heard you guys talking back and forth as you're coming down.
Faint shadow.
Yeah, because the sun was behind us.
Yeah.
There you see it, right?
There it is.
Tonight, astronaut Buzz Aldrin giving a thumbs up after an emergency evacuation from Antarctica. The rescue plane equipped with skis, landing in some of the most challenging conditions on the planet. Aldrin, part of a tour group on exploration. 2 days ago tweeting, "South Pole, here I come." But then he became ill.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Nearly 50 years ago, he and Neil Armstrong made history landing on the moon.
86-year-old American astronaut Buzz Aldrin is reported to have passed a lie detector test over his claim that he sighted an unidentified flying object or UFO during the 1969 moon mission. Aldrin was...
And I think that's pretty obvious to everybody. It's all about space companies. Today we're taking a crucial step to secure America's future in space by reviving the National Space Council after it has been dormant almost 25 years, if you can believe it. During the campaign, Vice President Pence promised that our administration, because Mike's very much into space, would revive the National Space Council. And with this executive order, we're keeping that promise. Feel very strongly about it. I felt strongly about it for a long time. I used to say, before doing what I did, I used to say, what happened? Why aren't we moving forward? Today's announcement sends a clear signal to the world that we are restoring America's proud legacy of leadership in space. Our Vice President cares very deeply about space policy, and for good reason. Space exploration is not only essential to our character as a nation, but also our economy and our great nation's security. Our travels beyond the Earth propel scientific discoveries that improve our lives in countless ways here, right here at home, powering vast new industries, spurring incredible technology, and providing the space security we need to protect the American people. And security is going to be a very big factor with respect to space and space exploration. At some point in the future, we're going to look back and say, how did we do it without space? The Vice President will serve as the Council's chair. Several representatives of my administration will join him, including Secretaries of State, Defense, Commerce, Transportation, and Homeland Security. The chairman of the great, I'll tell you, he's doing a fantastic job, always working, always fighting and winning. Winning big against ISIS, that I can tell you, seeing what's happening there. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The National Security Advisor, NASA, and the Director of National Intelligence. The Council will also draw the expertise of other White House offices as well as insights from scientists, innovators, and business leaders from across the country. We have many business leaders that want to be a big part of this. I think the privatization of certain aspects is going to play a very crucial role, don't you think? They are truly into it. This coordination will be accomplished through an advisory group that is being convened by today's executive order, which I'll be signing in a minute. The National Space Council will be a central hub guiding space policy within the administration, and I will draw on it for advice and information and recommendations for action. And the Vice President, myself, and a few others are going to pick some private people to be on the board. The human soul yearns for discovery. By unlocking the mysteries of the universe, we unlock truths within ourselves. That's true. Our journey into space will not only make us stronger and more prosperous, but will unite us behind grand ambitions and bring us all closer together. Wouldn't that be nice? Can you believe that space is going to do that? I thought politics would do that. Well, we'll have to rely on space instead. Every launch into the skies is another step forward toward a future where our differences seem small against the vast expanse of our common humanity. Sometimes you have to view things from a distance in order to see the real truth. It is America's destiny to be at the forefront of humanity's eternal quest for knowledge and to be the leader amongst nations on our adventure into the great unknown.
When you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war? What if and the threat? All of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all? We were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that?
And I could say the great and very beautiful unknown, nothing more beautiful. With the actions we're launching today, America will think big once again. Important words, think big. We haven't been thinking so big for a long time, but we're thinking big again as a country. We will inspire millions of children to carry on this proud tradition of American space leadership, and they're excited. And to never stop wondering, hoping, and dreaming about what lies beyond the stars. It could be infinity, we really don't know, but it could be. There's got to be something, but it could be infinity, right? Okay. All right. Who's getting it?
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going. But I think I know. Because we didn't.
And the man who once walked on the moon is an avid advocate for sending humans to Mars is now having some difficulty with his family back here on Earth. 2 of his children say that he has dementia. And now the famed moonwalker is firing back with a lawsuit.
Buzz Aldrin, the storied astronaut, American icon, and second human ever to kick up moon dust, now in a dust-up with his daughter, son, and former personal manager. The 88-year-old is suing them for elder exploitation and fraud, alleging misuse of funds.
I learned at West Point in the military and at NASA to trust people. I trust people too much. I'll admit that.
Last month, 2 of his 3 children filed paperwork to become his co-guardians, which would give them control of his finances and business dealings. They claim he is in cognitive decline, including being paranoid and confused, something Aldrin says is not true, which is why he's also suing them for slander.
I'm feeling younger and more energetic, really, than I really have ever been in my life. There's less confusion and more clarity.
Aldrin says he voluntarily underwent a mental evaluation earlier this year, which, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal, determined he is cognitively intact and retains all forms of decisional capacity. In the lawsuit, Aldrin accuses his son Andrew and Christina Korp, a former personal manager, of assuming control of company funds for their own self-dealing and enrichment. He claims his son Andrew transferred nearly $500,000 over the course of 2 years from Aldrin's bank account into Andrew's personal account.
We have individuals who have taken advantage of a situation and have overreached.
Aldrin says this family feud began in 2016, in part because of this trip to the South Pole, where Aldrin collapsed and had to be evacuated. He says his children then started limiting his activities.
It's the saddest thing that's ever happened in my family. But as I've seen, family is forever, and I will forever be trying to patch it up.
Aldrin's 2 children say they are deeply disappointed and saddened by the unjustified lawsuit, adding, "We love and respect our father very much and remain hopeful that we can rise above this situation."
Exclusive. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin is suing his own children, saying they're trying to steal his money by claiming he has dementia.
Your father was a pilot. He wanted you to be the first man to walk on the moon. Isn't that the truth?
My father really didn't understand the rocket business all that well.
Right.
I mean, he thought that you ought to be able to rescue somebody at the moon by sending another rocket and people to get there and bring them back.
Right.
Well, there was just no way to do anything like that.
Did you feel disappointment?
No,
that
I
you
felt
weren't?
a little embarrassed.
You were in front of your father.
No,
because it was so important to him.
Because he was talking to people that when he didn't really understand the background. Now, when President Kennedy said, May 25th, 1961,
yes,
I believe that this nation should commit itself before the decade is out of landing a man on the moon.
He was right.
And returning him safely.
A lot of people don't understand
Wait
that.
a minute. He didn't say anything about going outside the spacecraft and walking around on the moon.
Right.
He said to land a man on the moon and bring him back. Okay, that clearly people in the space business who understand the progression of exploration know that the very most important contribution of Apollo was demonstrating the ability to land on another object.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we didn't have spacewalking until the Russians had Leonov go outside the Vashgod and almost not get back in again.
Right.
So we trained my very good friend from West Point, Ed White, to do the first spacewalk on Gemini 4 with the maneuvering gun, and we had to really convince him to come back in again. It was so successful being outside the hatch of the Gemini 4 mission.
Were you confident that NASA knew what the hell they were doing when you
Absolutely,
went up? You
absolutely,
were?
yeah.
I
you know,
believe
when
we
the
should be on
president said
Mars
we're
already.
going to the moon,
Yeah.
we didn't know how to get there. We really didn't. Werner von Braun wanted a Nova rocket, which wouldn't have been ready until way past the president's deadline, 1970 or so.
Right.
We had a Saturn V under construction, but his calculations, Werner von Braun, was that we needed 2 of them to join up the stuff, go to the moon directly, and come back. It was an engineer.
But weren't you nervous that this was just theory, that they were rushing too fast into this,
No.
that they weren't, that, in other words, because Kennedy said we got to get a man on the moon now, that they were just going to rush, and who knows, this whole thing could have blown up. I mean, you must have been a little nervous about that.
Well, they did test the rocket.
We as a crew and other people felt that you could turn around and come back at many times during the mission.
Right.
And you might have to do that like Apollo 13 before you got a chance to get to the moon. So we figured the chance, just unofficially, the 3 of us on Apollo 1, that it was about 60% that we would be able to successfully land.
Right.
But 95% that if we weren't able to land, that we would be able to come back safely.
This is astronaut Edwin Aldrin, lunar module pilot for the Apollo 11 moon landing mission. What's the first thing you and Neil Armstrong will do after landing?
One of the first things that we will be engaged in is making immediate decisions as to how long we'll be staying on the surface. There are several favored abort points that we will be checking various systems to get a stay or no stay beyond these points. The first one occurs some 4 or 5 minutes after touchdown, the next one about 10 minutes, and the final stay occurs 1 revolution afterward. What we will be doing during that first revolution is very intensely preparing the vehicle for a simulated countdown to launch, which we will carry up to the last 5 or 10 minutes before the ascent, 1 revolution later as the command module comes over. Following this period, we'll go through a power down of the systems in the lunar module, preparing it for an extended stay on the surface. We will have an eat period followed by about a 4-hour rest period. When we awake, hopefully from much needed sleep of 4 hours, we'll have another eat period and go through about a 2-hour plus EVA preparation period.
About exploring the moon's surface, astronaut Aldrin had this to say.
Following the EVA preparation period, we will go through the planned 2-man excursion on the surface, with Neil exiting the spacecraft first. As he goes down the ladder, I'll be taking pictures of him with a 16mm camera through the window. Television camera will also be recording his activities. Initially, he'll collect a contingency sample. As I descend onto the surface, he will then be collecting a bulk sample of a larger sample of the lunar material. While he's doing this, I'll be participating in an extended EVA evaluation, just what are the capabilities of man to perform tasks on the lunar surface. We'll then join together following the deployment of television and perhaps the deployment of the flag on the surface. We'll then perform jointly an inspection, walking around the lunar module, looking at the various systems, the landing gear, making a very thorough inspection of everything that we can observe on it. In the process of doing this, we'll be taking a series of panorama photographs at 3 different locations as we move around. When we get to the about 3/4 of the way around the LEM, we'll begin to deploy several experiments. One is a laser retro reflector, and we'll offload these 2 from the scientific equipment bay. The other experiment is a passive seismometer. The deployment of these experiments will take some 5 to 10 minutes, and they're to be deployed some 50 to 60 feet away from the lunar module. We return from this excursion around the lunar module. We'll then pick up the equipment for a documented sample in detail in a predetermined location some 40, 50, 60 feet away from the lunar module. Following this, we'll package up these samples, conduct a few core tube samples and other brief experiments, pick up the solar wind experiment, and then prepare these packages to be transported up into the lunar module. I'll enter into the LEM first, and then Neil will convey these 2 sample return containers up on this tether assembly. Once they're inside, then he'll re-enter the lunar module and we'll pressurize, and that'll be the end of our EVA.
As well as lack of gravity force here. Tranquility Base, this is Houston. Could we get both of you on the camera for a minute, please? Say again, Houston. Roger, we'd like to get both of you in the field of view of the camera for a minute. Roger, we'd like to get both of you in the field of view of the camera for a minute. Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you. Over. That would be an honor. Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you... For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with Americans in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the Sea of Tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but men of peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with the vision for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
Look forward to that very much, sir.